Welcome to Lead Like a Girl, where we are empowering everyday women through our stories. I'm your host, Jessica Smith, and I began this journey by sharing my life story. Now, I've joined forces with my longtime friends, Jamie and Coralyn, to keep this party going. We met many years ago as young sales girls in our 20s, driven and quickly rising to the top of our industry. As the years went on, life happened, and we all found ourselves in new companies and completely different industries, still striving for success in it all. Career, family, faith, fun. Now, it wasn't easy, but we never stopped moving. Get ready for our real conversations, inspiring stories, and our big life lessons as we share it all. The good, the bad, and the funny. Welcome to Lead Like a Girl. Welcome to another episode of Lead Like a Girl. And tonight is, what'd you call it, Coralyn? A bonus episode. I am so excited to just have a little girl talk. And this is a much needed conversation. This is a conversation that a lot of people stay away from, but that's not how we lead like a girl. So we're doing it. We're doing it here today. If you want to find us on YouTube to watch this, it's Lead Like a Girl Lab on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And if you want to get your Lead Like a Girl swag like mine, this is actually a custom piece, so you won't find this one, but Lead Like a Girl swag you can find. We're updating our website. It's going to be new and improved, leadlikeagirllab.com. All right, so I want to jump in and let's just start with some quick intros. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. For those of you that don't know, as far as Jamie and Coralyn, the three of us, we kind of grew up in the same business together many, many moons ago, it feels like. And we started this podcast just to be a place where women come and encourage each other and empower each other and just talk about stuff and share our knowledge, experience, and my favorite, storytelling. So anytime you want to just bust out and tell a really good story, please do so, because that's what we love to do here on Lead Like a Girl. So real quick, if we can just do some quick intros for our guests, Regina and Rachel, and just tell us a little bit about yourself and anything you want to share, and then we will get into this very important conversation. So let's start with Rachel.
Hi, so I'm Rachel Peterson, and I work in automotive software. I am a director of client support. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Much.
Yeah.
Yes, and Regina.
Hello. So I'm Regina Lawless. I was formerly at Meta. I was the head of DEI for Instagram for a number of years, left there, and now I'm an author and entrepreneur, and super excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Yes, and I just want to kind of kick us off with just talking about what we're going to talk about, why it's important, and Coralyn, Jamie, definitely feel free to add anything here. But, you know, this really started, I am not what you would call a big into politics. I'm not, that's just not who I am. This campaign was very different, and at least for me, and definitely got into it a little more, did a little more studying, still not an expert. And you're never going to find me debating policies anywhere. The reason why this is so important is because I found myself in not a great place mentally through this campaign, and glad that it kind of went by a little quickly. But at the end of it, what I found is that I was really not okay. And I think that it started with me coming to Jamie and Coralyn, and I'm going to kind of throw them under the bus, but at the same time, it's real. This is how this came about, right? I was telling them that I'm not okay. And even us in our small circle, we don't talk about this stuff. And so they were kind of like, and I don't know, I'm going to let them say what they were feeling, but the tone of the conversation in the chat was, we do not want to have this conversation with your crazy ass. Like, we do not, like, we're not, we're
That
out,
is
like,
not true. That is not true.
I'm also going to disagree with that 100%.
So, no,
right out of the gate.
they're like, stop. No, but what I realized
no.
is that even with us, that we have not spent a lot of time just talking amongst ourselves about the campaign. That's what I had realized. And And I realized that I don't have anybody.
Yeah,
that
and I would
I've
say with
set
that,
around.
Jess, is I think that maybe because we didn't spend a lot of time on it, the fact that you were really emotionally charged about it, I didn't catch that at all via text at all.
Right.
Like I had zero clue on how you were feeling, and it just kind of, and we'll get into it a little bit in the conversation, but I had no idea that that's how you were feeling because we just don't talk about it, or we didn't talk about it.
Yeah. And so we're like,
Yeah,
you know
and
what?
I would just say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, so Jessica, so for some premise, Jessica sent out this text to the group. She's not okay. And we didn't answer. It was crickets. And when luckily her and I had a conversation the next day, and my response was like, I'm so overwhelmed and I'm so like fatigued from this conversation. And then also her and I got into a whole discussion of like, let's say you're not educated on politics. Let's say you don't know really what this whole like season means, but your children come home and they hear stuff from their friends and they hear stuff from their friends' parents. And what do you say to your kids? And so that was like a big premise of our conversation, but she's absolutely right. Like it was crickets. We were both like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what you feel. I know how I feel, but I don't know how, and it's a really uncomfortable position to be with like your best friends of, okay, what do I say? And what's the right thing? And I don't want to offend you. So,
yeah. So it just made me think, hey, we should have this conversation. And the conversation is not about let's sit around and debate about policies. The conversation is, I want to know from your perspective, your perspective, your perspective, and your perspective, how did you feel during this time, right? How did you feel? And also, where do we go from here? How do we go from here? So that's kind of what today is about. And I want to get us kicked off. Coralyn, what do you call it? Our fast, our 1 minute fast.
Our first minute fast after 27 episodes.
I know.
Because I want to say icebreakers. We'll get it. I'll get it one day.
It's the fast icebreaker.
So I want to just throw out some questions, and whoever answers, just scream out and answer. Hopefully something will come to mind for someone, okay? So I want to start off with just a day. This is just let's check on everybody. What's your mood today? And describe it using either a song title or a movie quote.
Oh boy.
Wow. These are not usually digging the deep recesses of
gosh.
Now
trivia.
You can say next. I got plenty of more, but I think this was a good one, especially for me because I don't know movies or songs. Anything?
Rachel and Regina, I feel like we're putting you guys on the spot. So
yeah. I mean,
well, what's hard is that I love music and I do know quite a bit of movies. So it's like trying to pick one.
Like pick one.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with. There are too many options, so nothing is coming to mind immediately.
So your mood
maybe the quote from like Friday where the dad says, don't come in the bathroom for 35, 45 minutes. That's kind of how I feel about our country. Like we're going to have to give it some time and we're not going to,
you got that one, Rachel. I wouldn't have came up with anything better. You got that.
Yeah. There it is. Fast forward. That's how I feel. I mean, like last week I felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. And I didn't expect to feel that way because I mean, obviously, all of us feel very surprised and defeated, But like surprised, I couldn't believe it happened again. And so then it was, how quickly can we just blink and make it and 4 years go by? I hate to say that, but that's how I feel.
Yeah. So let me give it another one. So what is one small act of kindness you've experienced recently that made you think this is what the world needs more of? Maybe it's not such a sucky place after all. Anything that anyone can think of.
My sister-in-law called me up out of the blue and asked if she could take my little guy to the movies because she knew that I was really busy and she wanted to give me some free time. And so she swooped him up and brought him to the movies. And so that was such a blessing.
I was going to say, and
what
that
a
is
great
a big
gift.
freaking deal. Trust me, I know that's a big deal.
It
That's a good
is.
one.
And just completely out of the blue, I'm like, oh, like, okay. Yes. That's a yes.
Yep.
I love
Yep.
that.
No, I love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
I
here's
had a
one more.
random stranger.
ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. If we
No. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say I had a random stranger. I went into a client's office this morning and was completely confused how to get up their elevator bank. There was a lot happening, and this nice gentleman like took the time to like help me figure out my different badges they gave me and like held the elevator, helped me get on. It was very much a like old school damsel in distress, which I don't really like. I don't feel like I'm a damsel, but I felt very much chivalry is not dead. So that was very nice of him.
Love it. And I'm glad that was today. So it was fresh in your mind, because I don't know. I just feel like I look for more of those moments. All right. So let's jump right in. So when we think about this campaign, I think it felt, again, like I said earlier, a little different for me. Rachel, you kind of started in on it a little bit. The energy, the media, it was exhausting, right? So overall, tell me a little bit about how did it affect you mentally, emotionally, and Jamie, I want you to share something that you shared to kick us off when you talked about like this fatigue, and hopefully your boyfriend's nowhere around you right now. But you're like, and it's not like I need a break, and I have someone that is, right next to me, and I'm trying to be a good partner, but I need a break. I need like just stop. Tell me a little bit about, or was that a big part of your fatigue during the campaign?
Yeah, that was I'm going to call it a quote unquote excuse to why I didn't answer Jessica's text message right away. And I called it fatigue because I had said, my significant other and I have been discussing this, the campaign, the politics, the this and that, and educating ourselves, which I think is hugely important, because I think a lot of people just don't take the time to educate themselves on the current topics. But I've been talking about this for like 5 months. Like every night we've been talking about politics, the campaign, the topics, the policies. We've been talking and talking and talking. And shortly before the election, during it, after it, that was hours every night of just hearing opinions and talking through them and everything. And I'm tired of it. Like it's one of those things that I think is really, really important. But I do think that like you get to the point where you have this, you've got the fatigue of like, I need a break. I need to like take a break mentally and not talk about this for just a little bit and try to absorb. Okay, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my family and the kids and the community and whatever? Like, just when you're constantly discussing things, you just get a little bit like, I need a break from that. And that's where I was coming from when I said that to Jessica, and no excuse, but it was just like, I can't talk about this anymore. Because, people, they want to vent on you, and you absorb, you take that in, and you're being supportive, but then you also need support.
Yeah. Jamie, I didn't ask you this,
right?
but do you and your boyfriend share the same views?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Regina, Rachel, anyone else?
Oh gosh. Fatigue is a good word, Jamie. Not only am I fatigued from politics, because I was heavily interested in politics for years. I used to have a long commute, and I would listen to political talk radio. I would listen to podcasts. I'd watch the news when I'd come home. And so I was someone who was very involved and pretty well versed on the issues and the characters. And so then, I went through a series of tragedies in my life and kind of pulled back from that, because I found that it just wasn't healthy for me to be that invested, because regardless of what side of the aisle you're on in our current climate, it's so polarized. And so it's no longer us trying to think of solutions that will benefit the majority of the country. It's very much us versus them, and they're crazy. Whoever the there is, each side thinks that the other side is crazy. But besides that, there is very much this constant demeaning posture now in politics. And so I had just gotten over it. I'm like, I can't even, I cannot even give the amount of energy. But then this election felt so important, particularly as a woman of color, to see the first woman of color potentially be the president of the United States was hugely energizing. So I did kind of peek my head back in and was cautiously optimistic. And when everything went down, I'm like, okay, yeah, so that was fun to hope for a second.
I love that you said hope, because I think that's a key word of like just hope.
Right. So I was like, that was cute. No. Thank you, Jamie. That was my sentiment. It was like, that was cute. That was fun to have a little bit of hope. And here we are. Here we are. Back to baseline. And
Regina,
I will say, and I.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
I was telling them that I knew that you were supposed to be here today, because when we were having this conversation, I just happened to be scrolling on LinkedIn because I couldn't get on Facebook anymore. And I told them, go on her LinkedIn page, and I want to know the backstory, because that picture was exactly how I felt. Please tell me, like, was that the moment? Like, what that picture? And I tried to do it. I'm not doing any justice. I was like,
thank you for acknowledging or for recognizing that picture was very deliberate. I took that picture years ago as part of this photo shoot that I did, but it immediately came to mind. I was like, I need a picture that captures how I'm feeling, even more so than what I articulated in the article that I wrote, because the article I wanted to really, even though I'm not hopeful about politics in the moment, I am generally hopeful about life. And so I try to strike that balance. And so but I knew that picture, it resonated with me, because I felt like I wanted to pull my hair out, and I was hoping it would resonate with other people.
It did. No, it spoke to me. Rachel, what about you? Like, what? I'm curious. You live.
Sure. Yeah. Kansas City.
You're right. So, and I've never lived there.
You're right. No Chiefs.
Okay.
But I'm curious.
We're Vikings fans up on this part, just for the record.
That's a great team. Support them.
But I'm curious to know, what is it like? What was it like, right, living there during this campaign? What did that feel?
So I'm in a little pocket of liberal. I mean, everyone around me almost. So I am in a bit of a bubble. I pride myself on having friends that think differently than me, but I wanted to say about the feeling is that, to me, it's fear, because it's like thinking about, if you think too long about time never ends and space never ends, it freaks me out. It makes me feel like overwhelmed. Like that can't be true. That doesn't match with science. There has to be an end to everything. That's how I feel about thinking about this, is that it overwhelms me really fast. That scares the shit out of me. Am I allowed to say shit?
Sure. Yeah. Oh no, I say it all the time.
Fine.
Okay.
Coralyn does not like shit.
So that's what is overwhelming. That's what gives me fatigue, is just the and being able, talked about this earlier, but who can I say what to? I mean, I'm in a corporate job and I have to be very careful, but I also feel like I'm dealing with a human rights issue. And if I'm not on the right side of history, how am I going to look my kids and my grandkids in the eye and say, that I said something, so that's exhausting because it's what can I say? What can't I say? To whom? I've pissed off family members. I have alienated people. I have, because I have a point where I need to say something, and that's exhausting. So just figuring out what I should say and who to say it to. And I mean, my husband, he's not a very political person. He had me fill out his ballot. I think we know what I did there to that one. But he agrees with me in general, and but he doesn't understand. And I am overwhelmed is the way that I can say it, as someone that, yes, I'm a woman, but I'm not a woman of color. I'm not a,
Your
a
hair is
refuge or
awfully curly there, but go ahead.
oh yeah. I'm not an immigrant. I'm not living in fear because I'm afraid for me personally. I know I'm past the time of childbearing, all of that. So I want to acknowledge that. But I'm exhausted because I am just exhausted from not, from dealing with, like, what not to say, what to say, and having these conversations with people and not getting anywhere and feeling like, how is this possible that you don't hear what you're saying? I just, and you're so hypocritical, the things that are coming out of your mouth. So that it's just, I feel like I'm walking around constantly tired, feeling like I'm trying to choose my battles. That was a lot of words. I hope that it
No.
made sense, but
It
yeah,
was
living in
great.
Kansas City, it's a pretty, yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Yes.
so Kansas City is not a small town. I mean, I'm in a small
Yeah.
town in Iowa, and it's very conservative. And one of the things that I've found, and I hope you can speak on this because it sounds like you really can. My daughter, so in school, in the community, in her job, she hears a lot of, so it's a conservative town. She hears a lot of like a lot of the opinions of her boyfriend's parents and her friends' parents
Mhm.
and the people at work and everything else like that. And one of the things, and she's only 17, so she's really, and I told her, you need to get educated on the topics before you try to debate me, first of all. But she brought up mass deportation as one of the topics, right? And not to get too personal, but I looked at her like, if it wasn't, you would not be alive if it was not for an illegal immigrant. Okay, let's just say it like that. You would not be alive. Like, that's why you're here. And so my question, and really for anybody, either whoever, but how? So when your children, when your siblings, when your significant other, when whoever is in your life come to you with, here's what I heard, here's what I heard, and they may or may not have the whole story or be educated in that topic, like what's your go-to for that? How do you present that snippet of education of like, okay, well, here's the facts, or what's your response to that type of comment?
For me online, anytime somebody says something that is, provocative, I come back with, I really try to not use emotion, and I use fact, and I don't attack, because I'm trying to connect to them, and one little thing here and there can make a difference. And so I just, it's mind blowing, like what would actually happen to our economy, to our culture, to everything, if we lost all of the immigrants. They're behind the scenes, they're doing the things that keep us, and that's why nobody knows how big of a deal it'll be, is because they're behind the scenes doing the grunt work that nobody fucking wants to do. It makes me insane. So so like, if I am online and I am reacting to something, I do it without, I really try to do it without emotion, but I try to come with facts. Our economy will not survive. And so that kind of thing. Somebody else can go now.
Yeah, Regina?
Now, I don't even like get into it with people online, and I commend you, Rachel, for even doing that.
Just a little
Um,
bit, just a little
no,
bit.
but even that, because I don't know, a couple things for me. Like, I want to attack it with logic, but what I've seen, and you said this earlier, for many people on the other side of this, logic is not a factor. because the argument, the math is not mathing.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
there is not logic. It is pure emotion and belief.
Fear.
And the belief is based in fear. The belief is based in, you know, this false sense of superiority. And it is very hard to combat truth and logic with fear and emotion. And especially emotion that is rooted in disinformation, because you're like, oh, this is a fact. And they come back with the craziest shit you've ever heard in your life. And you're just like, where did you read that? Like, I'm guessing you actually didn't read it. You saw it on TikTok or on Facebook.
And there are all these graphics online, on social media, where it's like, oh, every single state that voted for Kamala, they had no idea. The voters had no IDs. You know, they didn't have.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Like, guys, what are you doing? You can't.
It's you're importing voters. I'm like, well, if that was the case, she wouldn't have lost. Like, what is like, make it make sense. What?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Coralyn, we talked a little bit about this. Tell me a little bit about what was this like? What was this like for you, for your family, in your house?
You know, Rachel, when you were talking, I resonated a little bit. I was talking with a friend of mine, and I would say collectively, again, we're not trying to make this a political conversation. I'm purple. I think that there's some sides of each side that I'm a Christian person. And I think that there's some things on the liberal side that look like Jesus. And I think that there's some things on the red side that look like Jesus. And I am very, very solidly in the middle. I have some stronger thoughts about different issues than others. But through this conversation, I felt it was difficult because I have friends of mine that have family members that are not here legally. I also have very close friends of mine that are fighting for pro-life choices. And I believe that both of those things are right. And that might not be the popular opinion, but that's difficult because I can see both sides. And when you have two different sides of the coin and you have to pick one, and I didn't care for either one of them, to be honest. It's a really, really hard decision, you know? And so what you had said, Rachel, that really kind of I could sit with is that I am fairly privileged in the whole scheme of life and humanity, right? When policies get made in Washington, I don't feel fear. And I don't feel the same way that some other people feel. Like I just don't. So I feel that there's probably more education, more information. And maybe that's a little bit too, Jessica, because we haven't talked about these things. That why I was like, are you like, tell me how you're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was almost like, because before I always felt like I don't know enough about these policies. And like you said, I'm not going to sit and have a debate with someone. But early on in this campaign, I was like, I don't need to know these policies. All I know is this guy's a schmuck, and policies at some point, and this may sound very ignorant to say, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is. And Coralyn, you said something that was that made me think, because you said, you know, there's some people who they're the opposite, where the policies are so important that the character doesn't matter. I think that's right. Am I saying it right, what you said? And I said, and it made me think about this. And I was like, what? Now, the part I don't get about that is, how's the character not matter? Because if the character is a lying ass, then you can't trust him with any policies, because he's not going to do what he says because he's a liar. So there goes your policies out the window.
But be trusted. In my opinion, I mean, and again, I am not a political person. I will admit that. But there have been many. I mean, you think of, I don't know, like Bill Clinton. He was also impeached, wasn't he not? And now he's up. He's the person that's advocating that's up talking about and endorsing all these different people. And he's not going through the same thing, but very similar, different side of the story. But, and again, I don't know all the different things. I was much younger then when all that kind of stuff happened, but it's indicative of the culture. And I think collectively versus debating one thing or the other, it's what can we do now to move on, and what are the action steps that we can do? Because the reality is that my life, I probably will not have influence in Washington myself, but right. I can have a ton of influence in my community, in the people, and in the circles that I want to help. And so I feel like the better conversation to have is what are the action steps that we can take now to create some of the change that we want to see, so we don't have this conversation again.
I love that you said that, because that helps. I want to hear Rachel and Regina's opinion on this as well. But I was thinking exactly the same way, Coralyn. I completely agree with that question of where do we go now? Because I feel like this is like overwhelming and it's divisive, and but it starts with us, right? It's our own self-awareness. It's our personal growth. We're focusing on like educating ourselves. We need to figure out, listen to and accept other people's viewpoints and, both sides of everything. And just like, I like the word advocate, but like advocate for just awareness, advocate for, hey, learn more about this. Let's talk about it when we both know what we're talking about, but also, advocating for just whatever changes you think are the most important. And then just, even if it's that really, really small individual level, even if it's just you deciding, here's what I believe in, and I'm going to stand behind what I believe in. And then maybe I'll mention this to my friend. Maybe I'll talk about this with my family. But I really appreciate that you said that, because I think that that's the next step, is like, okay, now what? Now what do we do? How do we move on from here? And how do we work together?
Yeah, because, and I think for me, the important part was that we have to be careful, because a lot of times when people say that, they're basically like, yeah, let's not talk about that. That's over. Let's be done. And let's go ahead and just move on. So that's the part that, I just want to make sure that we're able to use the space in the room to say, this is how I feel, because I need to get it out. And I haven't been able to get it out anywhere else. And when I'm saying, and for you, Coralyn, it could easily be, I really don't have anything to get out, like you said, because walking in my shoes, this stuff doesn't really impact me. And I think that's your reality, right?
And I don't want that to be the thing. It's not that it doesn't impact me, because it impacts you, so it impacts me, and it shouldn't. And it's not like, I didn't want to paint a picture like I'm not involved because of that, but it impacts me because it impacts the people that are in my circle that I care about. So I think that that's an important distinction, because I don't want to say that I'm oblivious or I don't care about what's happening.
No. And I know that because I know you. Yeah, no, absolutely. For me, I haven't been outside of the 2-second conversation I had with Jamie and 2-second conversation I had with you. I've literally not had a conversation on the other side of this to say, and I'm going to say my last thought, and I want to give everybody an opportunity to do that. The only thing I can think of I haven't watched any news. I know nothing. I had to shut myself out. Nothing. I know nothing on the other side. I woke up the next morning and it wasn't a dream. And so I'm out. But what keeps me up at night is wondering, what could this man have possibly done? We use the example Clinton, he, got a blowjob under his desk. What could this man have possibly done or said? What is one thing he could have done or said to make people not want him to leave the country? That's the question that keeps me up at night.
There's nothing that he could have done or said. Nothing.
No. I have a strong opinion on this, and I want to share it because I want to hear what you guys think. I've been thinking about this a long, long time. So this is even before. But here's what I think happened, is that Obama scared the shit out of a lot of people. He is a Black man. He's an educated man. Forget that he had the most politically diverse cabinet or, crew of any president in history. He talked openly about race. It scared people to death. They didn't want to talk about it. They weren't going to ever say it. It made people that felt like their white privilege was like being put at risk, or whatever privilege they had. It scared them. It was pure fear. It was bubbling up, bubbling up, bubbling up. We have to address our history. We have to address slavery. We have to talk about what really happened here. We have to talk about the rights and all the disenfranchisement that happened to people of color to put us on an unequal playing field now. It's still here. We have to talk about it. So how do we end up? Like, what do we do from here? For me, I really do. And Pete, this is not a popular opinion. I really, really do think that the only way out is to, besides letting history correct itself, because here's where we are. We're in a swing and it's going to eventually go the right way, in my opinion, where it's going to even out. But in the meantime, I do think it's about talking to people who think differently than us and addressing that fear and trying to get to the bottom of it and saying, hey, uncle, that I know we think differently about, let's have a conversation. And I know that's unpopular because right now, like I said, I am a person of privilege because I don't have to be the one feeling fearful now because I'm not an immigrant or a person of color. And he has blatantly said things that are horribly offensive. So I'm not fearful of myself and my own rights, but I do feel like I feel like having those conversations are critical in trying to find common ground and get out of this place where it's so diabolical and so, hot and contentious, and everyone's just, it's so fearful. Either you're a person that's fearful of like actual fear for your physical self, or you're fearful of this, privilege that you see dwindling away, so anyway, the end. Off my soapbox.
Well, I think that was good. Go ahead, Regina.
It was, and I want to echo part of what you said, Rachel, and then give you what in my viewpoint, how I'm thinking about moving forward. But just someone who is in the DEI space prior to the murder of George Floyd and post, and really saw the pendulum swing to where we were having a lot of conversations around identity and privilege and rights, and for the first time ever, for some people having to understand what all of that means and question some of the inherited privileges and benefits that they have as a citizen, that some of these rights came at the expense of denying rights to other people. So that's a very uncomfortable conversation to have, especially people who are like, look, I was just born. I had nothing to do with. Yep. Yet and still here we are. Yet and still, these things are still in place. And so I do absolutely think that fear and power is what he was able to weaponize in this situation, as well as weaponizing people's ignorance and in a lot of cases lack of interest in the topics. But so yes, this is a reversal. This is why you see such an issue with DEI right now, because we know that once we were having that conversation, that opened up a lot of traction. We started to see movement, and then it was like, that means some people feel the zero sum game. So it's okay, if they get some, then that means that's taking away from me, which is nonsense. Yep. There's enough for everybody to go around.
Exactly.
Generally speaking. Yeah. So with that said, how I'm looking at it, I actually I pride myself on being very open-minded. Having been a DEI professional, I very much care about inclusion for all. Even if you don't look like me, even if you don't think like me, even if you don't act like me, I truly, as an individual, care deeply about people. What I don't care about, or what I don't prefer, is when people are very narrow and are not interested in the solution, when they want to wallow in the problem. So what I'm looking to do going forward is find people who are truly interested in how do we make things better? Great, you're my type of person. But if we're going to sit and talk about all the things that are horrible about this country and complain, your negative energy I'm allergic to, I can't talk to you anymore. So that's like, perfect. So I'm focusing on the people who care about the solution. I'm also focusing on, I want to be around people that actually genuinely care about more than just their people. So I think last thing I will say, I think as a country, we've got to figure out, are we going to be a country that is focused on just individuals? Like it's about me, me, me. I've got mine. As long as I win, who cares who else loses? That to me goes against my values. I actually care on the most amount of people being able to be successful and fulfill their dreams. So I want to be around people who are interested in that. And we can debate how we get there. We can discuss what that looks like, but fundamentally, I think we have to decide, are we a collective nation, or are we a nation of wolves and it's every person for themselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Coralyn,
that you
how do we
said
get
that. 'Cause
there?
I do think it's a lot about like, what do we want this country to be? What is our idea of, what is America to you? What is the United States? What does that look like? And so when people say make it great again, or bring it back, or there's other sayings, but it's like, I think that's important for us all to know that. What do we really want it to be like? Because some of the things that we do and say, I don't think it correlates with how, maybe even our own vision of what we want America to be. Yeah.
I love that. Coralyn, how do we
Agreed.
get there? You made a good point of like, where do we go from here? How do we get there? How do we impact change in our own communities on that theme? Because I love that, on the theme of what we want this country to be.
Yeah. I mean, internally, I feel like it just starts with education. To Jamie's point, that it really starts with looking at things that are outside of your own walk, like go in a different neighborhood, take a different drive to work, look at what's happening, read something different, talk to somebody who doesn't look like you. I feel like there's a lot of repetitive in our day to day where we just get tunnel vision, and I get up, I go to work, I sit with my people that I sit with at work, I come home, I talk to my family, and that's it. Maybe
Yeah.
read some things online or whatever, but I just feel like we get in a rut of the same. And there's so many gaps and so much need. I mean, just even the little community that I live in, there are kids that are going to school that haven't ate breakfast for weeks, or that don't have clothes and they don't have shoes, and it's good. And there's so many different bigger issues that we can pour our hearts and our minds and our souls into than debating on whether or not we agree on like tax change or whatever the case may be. Like I feel like the more, and I'll double down, triple down on this, is that change happens in our circles. Like we can affect change within our reach. And
Yeah.
but it takes action too. Like you have to move. You can't just be a sayer and not a doer. You have to follow up all these feelings, all these emotions, and you have to do something about it.
Put yourself in a place of being the other. That's so scary, but I believe that, because that's made me stronger, or like, connect with people, because I put myself in situations where I'm the only one of, whatever it might be. There's different things, but, and like in my book club recently, I made sure that we were inviting more people to like diversify our group, because I felt like it was getting too stagnant and with one thing. And then I don't feel like you don't get the most out of it. You're not having these, really dynamic conversations. And so it kind of goes along with what you said, Coralyn. I totally agree.
Yeah. So listen,
How
I
about
think
you,
one thing
Jessica?
that,
What's your takeaway?
well, listen, I was going to say for me, this has been really helpful. Really, it really has, because, it's like anything else, that when you keep things bottled up and you're like, well, I'm not going to have this conversation with this person or that person. Either people are like, I don't want to talk about it anymore, or after you talk about it, where it just doesn't feel good afterwards. I feel better than I did when I entered this conversation. So I really appreciate that you guys took the time to have this conversation. And I'm going to be more intentional, and that is looking, like you said, for people who don't look like me or have the same beliefs, and not there's been a couple of times, there's people in my family that I said, you know what, you have to be more open. And I go down that rabbit hole conversations. And then next thing you know, I just want to either stab them or cuss them all the way out.
Don't do that.
I'm like, I don't want to feel that way. So I got to figure out how to, I think Rachel said it,
I love
put my
you.
emotions to have better conversations and not allow myself to go there to that dark place to want to feel that way. So yeah, that's all I got. I'm glad we had this conversation. And I think we're going to have to circle back. This is a great group. And I think
I love this
there's so
group.
much, there's so many
Very
other
fun
things to
group.
talk about. But I do want, Regina, I want to give you an opportunity to, because I follow you. I was telling them that I'm a little bit of a stalker. I've been following you. I think you're doing great work. And I'd love for you to promote your book or tell people how they can find you, where they can find you, how they can follow you before we close out here.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Jess. So I always keep a copy of the book nearby. So if anybody's seeing this on YouTube, the book is called Do You. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Audible. It's an audio book as well. And the book, I think it's actually really timely. So the book is I lost my husband suddenly a few years ago. And so the book tells my journey of how I not only recovered from grief, but how I changed my life and found meaning and purpose again. And I think that's one of the ways that I'm trying to give back. I'm trying to continue to find my own joy, cultivate that. And I think if more people found that spark of joy in their life, then they would be more caring and lovely to other humans. So that's my contribution of how I plan to move forward. And if that resonates with people who are listening, you can follow me on Instagram at regina.lawless, also on LinkedIn at Regina Lawless, and more to come.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other last thoughts? We are definitely going to have you back to talk more about your book in the future. This was a very much so impromptu conversation. And we know that, hey, everybody's busy. Your time is the most valuable thing that you have. And we thank you for sharing it with us tonight. All right. Thank you, ladies. All right. Lead Like a Girl
Thank you.
Lab.com.
Thank you.